For most of human history, our bodies were synced to the sun and the seasons. Physical effort directly equaled sustenance. But the industrial and digital ages introduced an entirely artificial concept, selling our specialized time for a programmatic currency. This system requires treating the human body as rented machinery. As sociologist Dr. Evelyn Vance notes, when you lease an engine, you optimize for output, not for the longevity of the machine. The true ledger of our work life is written in our blood chemistry and the empty seats at our dinner tables. When you sit in an office chair for 8 to 12 hours a day, your physical chemistry changes. Occupational therapists call it the sitting disease. Within an hour of inactive sitting, your metabolic rate drops to near zero, and lipoprotein lipase, an enzyme vital for breaking down fats, plummets by up to 90%. Over a decade, your physical form structurally molds to the geometry of the workspace. This static load creates continuous compression on the lumbar spine, resulting in degenerative disc disease and a systematic shortening of the hip flexors. This chart illustrates the disruption of the circadian matrix. The high blue spectrum light of the office suppresses the pineal gland secretion of melatonin, causing a steep drop in natural levels. This constant artificial sky creates social jet lag, fracturing the internal clock and degrading the body's immune surveillance. The corporate workspace functions as a physical filter. It forces the human body to down-regulate its own metabolic capabilities in exchange for systemic scalability. This friction extends deep into the mind. Operating under an external locus of control, where your schedule and security are dictated by a hierarchy, triggers chronic microstress. The brain interprets this structural lack of agency as a baseline threat, releasing a slow, toxic trickle of cortisol that erodes emotional regulation over time. A unique psychological strain occurs when executing tasks for a company whose mission you don't share. To survive this cognitive dissonance, employees wear a professional mask, projecting enthusiasm while emotionally detaching, all to retain the salary and benefits known as the golden handcuffs. The cost of this daily performance is paid at home. After selling their prime hours to an organization, parents arrive at the second shift physically exhausted and mentally depleted. The family receives only the residue of the worker's energy. To accommodate rigid commute times and late meetings, crucial milestones of child development are routinely outsourced to daycares and digital devices. The family's timeline becomes entirely dictated by an external institution. Consider Michael Henderson, a senior software architect who achieved stellar performance reviews, promotions, and stock options. Looking back, he noted, "My family was getting the absolute worst version of me, unable to engage with my sons or hold a real conversation with my wife. I was a highly paid ghost in my own house." The corporate matrix provides predictable economic safety. It shields you from immediate financial ruin, but it pays for that safety by steadily liquidating your personal autonomy and domestic intimacy. When you leave that matrix to work for yourself, the safety net completely vanishes. The HR departments, the IT support, the established boundaries, they disappear. You become the entire infrastructure, fully exposed to the elements. The most immediate consequence is the absolute collapse of physical boundaries. For the self-employed, the workday doesn't terminate at 5 p.m. The living room becomes a conference space, and work expands to consume every conscious hour of the day. The chemical profile of the body mutates. Instead of a passive drip of cortisol, the entrepreneur experiences violent, high-amplitude spikes of adrenaline. When a client relationship frays or cash flow dries up, the body enters a true survival mode. Driving through this continuous, high-stakes environment causes severe dysregulation of the autonomic nervous system. This manifests as adrenal burnout, characterized by persistent elevated heart rates, intense sleep deprivation, and a structural reliance on stimulants to start the day and depressants to end it. Sarah Lynn, a founder and principal designer, lived this reality. The freedom was intoxicating, she noted, but the responsibility was terrifying. My personal bank account might not cover my rent. My body was operating on pure adrenaline for 24 months. Sovereignty does not eliminate stress, it amplifies it. The price of self-directed freedom is converting your physical biology into a highly stressed, liquid asset to fund the survival of the business. Psychologically, the entrepreneur operates with an extreme internal locus of control. Without a corporate hierarchy to share the blame, every failure and missed deadline is a deeply personal indictment, creating the crushing burden of infinite choice and total accountability. This breeds intense professional isolation. An employee navigates within a social matrix of peers. The self-employed individual stands entirely alone at the apex of their entity, unable to share their deepest anxieties about existential business threats with clients, vendors, or competitors. This isolation forces a manic-depressive emotional cycle. Securing a new contract triggers an intense dopamine rush and feelings of invincibility. Losing a pitch plunges the individual straight into existential dread, with no peer group to buffer the shock. Because the business is tethered directly to the home, the household functionally becomes a subsidiary entity. Domestic stability ebbs and flows entirely on the unpredictable volatility of business cash flow. Even when the entrepreneur is physically present for a midday school event or dinner, they are often plagued by an acute psychological absence. They sit at the kitchen table while their mind is thousands of miles away, navigating digital fires and balancing ledgers. The sovereign path offers uncapped financial rewards and total alignment between your actions and your values. But the hidden cost of this autonomy is constant, unprotected exposure to both existential dread and domestic instability. To truly understand modern labor, we have to look past the financial paychecks. Working for others and working for yourself are entirely distinct biological and psychological operating systems, each extracting its own heavy toll. This chart breaks down the systemic costs of each path. Physically, the corporate worker faces static compression and predictable ergonomic strain. In contrast, the entrepreneur faces extreme duration strain and self-imposed physical neglect due to task intensity. Mentally, the employee absorbs continuous microstress and lacks environmental control, resulting in protective dissociation. The self-employed endure hyper-responsibility, deep decision fatigue, and erratic sleep patterns disrupted by late-night cognitive arousal. Economically, the employee trades their time for the predictable safety of a salary, remaining vulnerable only to sudden institutional layoffs. The entrepreneur relies on an immediate connection between labor and income, requiring constant survival budgeting. At home, the corporate worker struggles with temporal fragmentation, giving their family whatever energy remains at the end of the day. The entrepreneur physically integrates their space, but collapses all boundaries, forcing the family to live inside the anxiety of the business. There is no path free from cost. Both systems exact a highly specialized, unavoidable tax on your physical body, your mind, and your household. We can view this trade-off as a mathematical equation. A human being has a total amount of systemic energy, which must be distributed across biological maintenance, operational execution, and environmental navigation. This document outlines the corporate equation. The energy required to navigate complex office hierarchies, interpret ambiguous directives, and manage internal politics is massive. It severely drains the reserves left over for basic biological maintenance. When you work for yourself, the equation shifts. The political strain drops to zero, but the survival strain escalates dramatically. The total cognitive load doesn't disappear. It just mutates from managing social optics into ensuring against catastrophic financial failure. The choice between employment and self-determination is not a choice between suffering and joy. It is a highly deliberate decision about exactly which currency you prefer to pay the inevitable tax of reality with. Ultimately, the truest measure of human wealth is not a corporate title or a market valuation. It is agency, the capacity to consciously design your day, to preserve the structural integrity of your physical frame, and to be deeply, attentively present for the people you love. Whether you operate inside the architecture of a corporate machine or within the fiery forge of your own enterprise, the challenge remains the same. You must refuse to let your life be passively consumed by labor and decide, deliberately, how to be the true architect of your limited time on Earth.